Never hungry, lots of energy, weight's falling off him, so he started to put some of his patients on this. It is estimated that 11 million people were helped by his diet. His book was #1 on the New York Times best-selling book list 4 years running. This guy demands some attention. But the problem is that after a while, some of his patients were developing arthritis because this is a high acid food. In fact, I had a man come to me wanting a consultation when I was in New York a few years ago. He said, I used to be one of Dr. Atkins' patients. He said, I'm a vegetarian, I'm an Adventist, but I was getting overweight, I was getting diabetes, heart disease, so I went to Dr. Atkins because he's a very famous doctor. And Dr. Atkins, he said, was a very gracious man. He said, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to stop this high carbohydrate diet. So he said, I started eating meat. I didn't eat a lot. I had a lot of vegetables. He said, I didn't get diabetes. He said, my heart problems all resolved. He said, the weight dropped. But he said, I'm getting arthritis. And he said, you are the first nutritionist that hasn't totally slammed Atkins. I'm interested. I said, well, Atkins' theory was correct. It's what I have shown you today. But what you can do superior to Atkins. You can do the plant proteins. You can do the plant fats. Dr. Atkins, on his first stage, he got people down to 20 grams of starch, carbohydrates a day. Do you know there's no need to go that low? All you need to do is greatly reduce the carbohydrates, ideally stop the wheat, eat more vegetables, eat more legumes, nuts and seeds, and you can get a similar result. Because of the results that he was getting, and by the way, his cancer patients were going into remission, people with high cholesterol were coming back to normal. Did everyone hear that? And his patients were eating meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. And what are people told to get their cholesterol levels down? They've got to stop the meat, butter, cream, cheese, eggs. So Atkins threw a spanner in the nutrition world's wheel, and it needed the spanner thrown into that wheel. And the only reason his patients got away with it for so long is the 3 cups of vegetables a day, which have an alkalizing effect. But the beauty of the plant proteins, it's much cleaner burning fuel. It doesn't leave an acid waste like the protein does. And when I was consulting with this man, he said to me, I believe if Dr. Atkins had read the China study, Atkins would have become a vegetarian. What an interesting comment. So you can get those results, but you can do it on a plant diet, as long as you do the legumes. And so many people say, oh, legumes, you've got to soak them, you've got to cook them. Well, when you go home tonight, just fill up the saucepan and fill it up with lentils. In the morning, rinse it well, bring it to the boil, rinse it again, put it in your slow cooker. There's lots of shortcuts. Or soak a whole lot, rinse heaps of them and then put them in snap lock bags in the freezer. Then you just pull it out, cook them. There's lots of shortcuts. And you can get organic beans in tins. Just make sure you bring them to the boil and rinse them very well. So it's easy, it need not be difficult. You see, animal protein, it burns at, so let's look at protein. Animal protein, only 58% is burnt as fuel. So that's a 42% waste. That's the acid waste. And that's what Dr. Colin Campbell found in his book, The China Study. He could switch cancer cells on and off, and we looked at this briefly when we looked at cancer on the first night. Because it's an acid waste, and cancer thrives in an acid environment. We looked at that. Whereas plant protein, it's a lot cleaner burning fuel. It doesn't have that acid waste. So with plant protein, you're getting up to about 80% easy is burnt as fuel. That's That's a big difference. So your plant protein is a superior protein. What Atkins found, and I found this interesting, he found that these 3 food groups are the essential food groups. Fibre is essential because the colon needs to be swept. We looked at that when we looked at the colon, when we looked at the waste disposal organs. Protein is essential because the crossword bands, remember we looked at the DNA on the first night, it's made up of amino acids. Amino acids is a breakdown from the protein we eat. And it's amino acids that builds the new cells in the body. And 50% of the membrane around every cell in the body is protein. That's essential. Fat is essential. The fat-free diet is a dangerous diet. There are fats that'll kill and there are fats that'll heal. And because there are some killer fats, they've all been dumped in the same basket. What are the killer fats? The altered fats. You see, for centuries, people used the coconut oil and the olive oil. They can be extracted from the flesh of the plant. But those hard seeds, they couldn't really get the oils out until they developed high heat chemical equipment to extract oil from hard seeds. And because they use chemicals and heat, they destroy the oils immediately. So there's clear plastic bottles that have got sunflower oil, peanut oil, soy oil. Don't touch them. They're the oils that can help to damage the arterial wall. They're the dangerous oils. And your deep fried foods. If you do fry any food, it should be always in a saturated fat, because saturated fat is heat resistant and light resistant. The heat doesn't destroy them. Yeah?
What about avocado oil?
What about avocado oil? Avocado oil has some saturated fat and some monounsaturated fat. So if you do have avocado oil, it should be first cold pressed. Your brain is the fattiest organ in the body. It must have fat. The myelin sheath that is around the arm that comes out of the nerve cell, it's mostly fat. If someone's on a fat-free diet, on cholesterol-lowering medication, because that fatty substance is mostly cholesterol and it protects the nerve cell. So if someone's on a fat-free diet, cholesterol-lowering medication, and got a mouthful of mercury and eating fish every day to try and get some more protein, but they're having huge amounts of mercury and big exposure to chemicals, well, that's disaster. There's your Parkinson's disease, there's your multiple sclerosis, there's your dementia and your Alzheimer's, because then the brain cells are getting damaged. So we need to be having nice amounts of fats. How much? Well, not much. It's a very concentrated food. Maybe a teaspoon a meal, maybe not even that. You don't need much. I don't know about you, but I couldn't drink a cup of oil. No, not attractive. But you would be surprised how much oil a person is consuming when they eat a whole meal of, say, fish and chips and scallops, all that fried food. They're almost consuming nearly, probably between half a cup and 3/4 of a cup of fat. And it's damaged fat. That's the fat that is dangerous. There's no doubt about that. But because there are dangerous fats, unfortunately, they've all been classified as dangerous, but they are not. And we need some. Our brain needs some. 50% of the membrane around every cell in the body is fat, except for the brain cell, 70% fat. So these are the essential food groups. And what Dr. Atkins showed, and he went into the medical journals and he found confirmation on this, that the non-essential food group is carbohydrates. And how many people are overdoing the non-essential and missing out on the essential? And what's the result? Obesity, heart disease, diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's. Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. Now remember, carbohydrates aren't bad. My husband would never forgive me if the potatoes stopped. It's only